heading down the opposite road. He was beginning to believe that the government was building large crematoriums to support concentration camps being made around the country.
They all believe this too, by the way. They all really believe this. FEMA concentration camps all over the country that are like gonna be for like taking the poor people away who aren't white and don't have guns.
Spoke out against the government.
They all
He
believe
thought the
this.
UN was a Zionist.
My stepfather believes this. It's annoying to me. It's the alt right. They all the lunatic fringe and the fucking alt right like conspiracy theorists. They believe that there is government FEMA camps, and I've seen them too, but I don't think they are what they think it is. There's government FEMA camps all over this country designed to be concentration camps for essentially poor people who aren't white and don't have guns.
Aggro.
And my stepfather's very angry about this, and I'm angry about the FEMA camps too. But I'm not convinced what he says is happening is happening. I don't know shit all about what's going on in the government. I don't care to, really. It's not my business. I'm not the government. So if they're making FEMA camps to imprison us all, okay. But I mean, I don't know what I can do about that. I don't know why being afraid of it would be very wise. I don't know why, like, or a good use of my time. Like, I don't know. Like, I struggle with this a little bit. Two casters is so annoying. Are we done here? Yeah, we're done here. I should go down there and get that one, but I mean, I don't know. It says 15. I'll wait. I saw him yesterday.
Aggro.
Oh, damn it. Ah. I hate how, like the entire time I'm playing this game, the kick always goes off like they designed it so badly that the kick always goes off at the millisecond at the end of the cast, not in the big bar where they're actually casting. It's always the millisecond after the cast is when you get the energy to do it. And so it perfectly misses it every time, and then they just start casting another one. Then you don't have the kick anymore. You kick nothing, and you're like, what? Oh my god. You're so annoying. Stop that.
Were hell-bent on taking guns from Americans. And then something happened that confirmed to him many of the things he was believing. In August of 1992, national news broke about a standoff and a subsequent siege on Ruby Ridge. McVeigh viewed the unlawful killings of Sammy and Vicky Weaver as the first move of the NWO.
I did. I didn't. Everything I say was true. He was pissed off about Ruby Ridge. He was obsessed with the Turner Diaries, which is the next thing I'm going to look at. And that's what I came here looking for on this video, was the Turner Diaries. I don't care to know anything about the Turner Diaries. I mean, I'm sorry, I want to know about the Turner Diaries. I just don't wish to be indoctrinated by them. So let's go look at and I suspect this is kind of a scary thing to look up on YouTube, but, you know, what are the Turner Diaries? Like, what is that? Like, yeah, like what? And this is a bad thing for me to Google, you know? And like, I shouldn't do this kind of, like, you know, frankly, it's a bad thing to look up. It's like a buzzword for terrorists. The far left it's far left? I thought it was far right. Poison Pen, Turner Diaries. I can't play this. Turner Diaries book review. Diary of a Mad White Man. Yeah, it's one of the most hateful and controversial books ever written. Yeah, closing and all this, yeah. But I don't think so. I think it's all gonna be weird, racist, like indoctrination stuff. Yeah, the Turner Diaries is like the Nazi Bible. That's what I've always heard it was. Yeah, reading the Nazi Bible, right? This guy got a lot of hits. This
video is going to get into...
Here we go. This guy's popular, and he got a lot of hits with this. And I don't think he's white, and I don't think he's racist.
The darkest subject matter you can imagine. Assault, murder, genocide, tons of hate speech, and just a frankly astonishing amount of sexual assault. I'm discussing...
Yeah, yep. It's weird. They all like idolize this weird shit that you would hear out of like a army platoon in a native land, like on a crusades through a foreign village or something. They've all got weird fantasies about that. I've heard them talk about it. Like, what would you do in a fucking foreign village and all this shit? It's like, man, like, I don't know, like all that weird shit.
Has inspired many real-life terrorist attacks. So if you choose to watch this video, please keep in mind that it may be very upsetting. The Turner Diaries is a 1978 science fiction novel written by William Luther Pierce under the assumed name Andrew MacDonald. The novel, told from the perspective of a future activist in the year 2099, outlines the diaries of a revolutionary terrorist named Earl Turner in the distant future of the early 90s. It is, in many respects, the most hateful book ever written. It was famously referred to as the Bible of the Racist Right by the Southern Poverty Law Center, an American civil rights advocacy group. If you're familiar with this book, and I'm going to assume that none of you have read it because why on earth would you read it? It's likely because of its connection to the Oklahoma City bombings, which were partially inspired by events in the book. Timothy McVeigh was radicalized after reading the Turner Diaries and was actually carrying pages from the book when he delivered bombs to the Murrah Federal Building in 1995. The bombing itself is strikingly similar to an attack carried out by the novel's protagonists against an FBI building. Pierce, the book's author, condemned this attack as a tactical error. Since the United States was not in the midst of a white nationalist revolution at the time, he argued that it was not yet appropriate to blow up federal buildings. Just to give you a sense of the type of guy we're dealing with here. It wasn't a moral objection, it was purely tactical. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. This book has been the direct inspiration for dozens of hate crimes that we know of, and it's tied to at least 40 terrorist attacks which have resulted in the deaths of at least 200 people. Knowing about this, I was pretty hesitant to actually read it. There was a part of me that looked over the history of this book, saw all of these people who read it and became horrible monsters, and I couldn't help but worry that if I read it, I might become some sort of racist version of Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Like I could be as indoctrinated as these other guys. Yeah. I looked at it as though it had this seductive dark influence, that it was like a magical artifact with the power to change people's minds and heart. But that's magical thinking, and this isn't even that kind of book as much as it tries to be. This is a book for people who are already pretty convinced of Nazi ideology. Oh, and I should mention that I use the word Nazi here very intentionally. The book makes references to the Great One, a historical figure that we are given no information about other than that he was one of history's greatest luminaries, and also he was born in 1889. The book makes constant Holocaust apologetics and frames World War II as a conflict between white nationalism and Jewish influence, the latter being the villain in Pierce's mind. This is a Nazi book written to get people to do Nazi stuff, but not necessarily for Nazis exclusively. Wave goodbye to my monetization, everybody. Goodbye! Bye! It never justifies its racism or anti-Semitism.
No, we can freely talk about this.
With which it pursues either.
No, they can't censor that. Like, talking about it is okay. Teaching it is bad. Talking about it like a treatise or whatever, or like, you know, like a breakdown or paper or edutainment is fine. It's just as long as we're not indoctrinated or teaching the ideals or anything, or using the language or believing in any of that shit, we're good. We're okay. Yeah.
Assumes you're already on board with that. There are moments in the book.
Honestly, I don't know why this book wasn't taught to us in schools. I have never heard about this book, and I'm not talking about taught to us, but they at least told us what Mein Kampf was when I was being taught about World War II. But I feel like they should have talked about this book after the OKC bombing, because I think they're both about as dangerous, really, and that's why I'm here. I've like a, I don't know about banning the book. I'm just saying that, like, you know, that these were dangerous books, like Mein Kampf and the Turner Diaries.
Book where characters have that ideology explained to them, but it's never explained to the audience. It's always some brief aside where, oh, then they told me about how Jews were doing blah, 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 blah. And I was mad because I'm a big, cool white guy. To quote from The Turner Legacy by J.M. Berger at the International Center for Counterterrorism, while Pierce's decision to forego an overt identity choice appeal marginalizes the book for popular audiences and limits its readership, the lack of a specific ideological orientation maximizes the audience of potential racist extremists to include the adherents of any white nationalist faction, as well as pedestrian racists who identify simply as white. The reader can fill Turner's ideological vacuum with a specific set of beliefs or simply with racial animus or anxiety. In this context, it is noteworthy that Timothy McVeigh showed no clear indication that he subscribed to any specific white nationalist ideology, despite his fixation on the text. Ultimately, the Turner Diaries drips with racial animus but contains little rhetoric explaining the reasons for its views on race. It is instead a call to immediate, violent action, with specific ideas for how to carry out such action. Truth is, there's nothing human in this book. There's nothing in it that can inspire any emotion in someone who is not already a devotee of its hateful message, aside from fear or disgust. There's no story here.
Killed me.
There's no rising action, no characters we come to know or understand. This is supposed to be a man's diary, and it reads like a dreary catalog of events, inventories, and plans, written without the slightest sense
I
of
believe I'm
passion
getting too
or
tired to do
liveliness.
this.
Pierce was a physicist
I didn't
by
even gouge
trade,
or anything
and
at
it
all. I
shows.
just
He
brain
spends
dead.
lengthy tirades explaining mechanical contraptions, sometimes improvised weaponry, which I'd understand why he'd want his fellow white nationalist radicals to understand, because, you know, McVeigh used his instructions to bomb a federal government building, but also just like how they jerry-rigged a shower in a building without water pressure, how far they drove from one city to the next, and how much gas it took, how messages were sent over the radio, and what kind of cryptograph they used, and how they built the radio, on and on and on and on.
I missed a lot of that.
There's a really underdeveloped built water.
Come on, man. Like, I was trying to get a critical fucking breakdown. You
Despite
spin
his
me.
fixation.
I think I'm going to turn off a couple of mods on this side for this character. Is it like both my characters? I don't know. I think they share the mod list because they have the same name, which kind of messes up the game a bit. But I think it's GM Agromon, but I don't want to turn this off because if my hardcore character doesn't have it when I need it, I could lose my hardcore character. It's like annoying. Hearing the aggro sound all the time is kind of annoying. But what else was I thinking about here? I don't need Gather Mate. Yeah, let's look at what stuff I have here. I frankly don't need GTFO. Actually, I mean, it helps. It does help. Guideline Sage I'm not using. Yeah, all the rest of it. Narcissist can go. Voiceover is getting annoying to me right now. I don't value these quests, and I like the voiceover, but I don't care very much, unfortunately. I don't care to have it interrupting my videos all the time. So I'm going to just reload it, because, yeah.
On the text. Mad because I'm a big, cool white guy. To quote from The Turner Legacy by J.M. Berger at the International Center for Counterterrorism, while Pierce's decision to forego an overt identity choice appeal marginalizes the book for popular audiences and limits its readership, the lack of a specific ideological orientation.
I got most of the way
maximizes
through
the
level
audience of
13
potential racist
somehow
extremists
tonight,
to
which is
include the
crazy.
adherents of any white nationalist faction, as well as pedestrian racists who identify simply as white. The reader can fill Turner's ideological vacuum with a specific set of beliefs or simply with racial animus or anxiety.
They
In this
reduce
context,
res
it is
sickness.
noteworthy that Timothy McVeigh
Wow,
showed no
I didn't know
clear
that.
indication that he subscribed to any specific white nationalist ideology, despite his fixation on the text. Ultimately, the Turner Diaries drips with racial animus but contains little rhetoric explaining the reasons for its views on race. It is instead a call to immediate, violent action with specific ideas for how to carry out such action. Truth is, there's nothing human in this book. There's nothing in it that can inspire any emotion in someone who is not already a devotee of its hateful message, aside from fear or disgust. There's no story here. There's no rising action. No characters we come to know or understand. This is supposed to be a man's diary, and it reads like a dreary catalog of events, inventories, and plans written without the slightest sense of passion or liveliness.
Hello.
Pierce was a physicist by trade, and it shows. He spends lengthy tirades explaining mechanical contraptions, sometimes improvised weaponry, which I'd understand why he'd want his fellow white nationalist radicals to understand because, you know, McVeigh used his instructions to bomb a federal government building, but also just like how they jerry-rigged a shower in a building without water pressure, how far they drove from one city to the next, and how much gas it took, how messages were sent over the radio, and what kind of cryptograph they used, and how they built the radio, on and on and on and on. There's a
He's
really
boring about how
undeveloped love
he's
story in
complaining
the
about
book,
how boring
and
it
this
is.
is how it starts. I undressed, got a towel, and opened the door to the shower, and there was Catherine, wet, naked, and lovely, standing under the bare light bulb and drying herself. She looked at me without surprise and said nothing. I stood there for a moment, and then, instead of apologizing and closing the door again, I impulsively held out my arms to Catherine. Hesitantly, she stepped toward me. Nature took her course. That's a sex scene, in case you couldn't tell, and it came after 2 pages of discussing how the radio and showers worked in the building. He just stays naked and nature takes her course. That's all. That's all he can bother to write about the moment he falls in love.
Yeah.
So let me just outline the book's plot to you. You've got this narrator from the future who sets up that these are the diaries of a boots-on-the-ground revolutionary named Earl Turner. Occasionally, the narrator interjects comments in the book to the future audience whenever Turner makes reference to something they would not have the context to understand, like dollars were the currency of old America, or miles because future white land is on the metric system. That's not a joke. So it's the distant future year of 1991, and the evil dystopian government known only as the System is confiscating all guns from American citizens, or at least all the white ones. Turner gets caught up in a raid with a hidden gun and joins a revolutionary group called the Organization, dedicated to overthrowing the
Oh
system
my
and
God.
fighting tyranny in all of its forms. Fighting tyranny. Keep that in mind. Tuck that away in your brain. That's going to come up in a bit. The world under the control of the system is a bleak place. They've made it illegal for white people to defend themselves against attacks from people of color because that would
Well,
be
that's
a hate
just
crime.
terrible.
If you don't know what a hate crime is, the police are too afraid of being considered racist to ever police black communities so black people can commit crimes with impunity, which of course they love to do because the book is written by a white supremacist. The system has put in place all sorts of wacky laws and done all sorts of bizarrely repressive things. They made sexual assault legally distinct from regular assault, for example, because, and just get ready for a real unpleasant couple of sentences coming up. Since only women can be sexually assaulted, citation needed, laws against sexual assault are unconstitutional because they don't respect equality between sexes. Also, liberal women let it happen because they think it would be racist to stop it because, of course, it's only black men who can be rapists, naturally. As a result, there's so much rape in this book that at some point it just ceases to be shocking. It's just description after description of violent, horrible rapes that this dude is imagining are happening, as though that should get us mad at people in real life for allowing his delusional world to be created. So Turner and his cell of terrorists, and keep in mind, they self-identify as terrorists, that's not my judgment on them.
No,
They'll rob
that's
little
what they
bits of
call
petty crime
themselves.
And knock over other people and violently murder its Jewish owner, which
What?
makes Turner really sad. A blue, 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 blue. Then they're tapped by Revolutionary Command to blow up an FBI building with a truck full of bombs. So they do, without question. And they kill 700 people, but it's okay, because sacrifices must be made. And only...
What was the number on OKC? It was like 596 or something like that. It's so sick, this whole bullshit.
Liberal weaklings are afraid of making the hard choices and doing what must be done.
Oh,
so the organization's attacks get more bold, killing higher profile people. And this makes the system crack down on them harder, which is what they want, because that will make the people wake up to how dangerous the system is. The system tries to fight back against the org by creating a fake protest where a bunch of people chant slogans against racism and beat white people to death. Like, that's the system's plan to make white people look bad. The system has full control over the mass media and lulled everyone into a sense of complacency, but it's so bad at using the media that it thinks this will be the way to get people on their side. During this protest, the crowd spots a white cat, and then somebody yells, and this is going to seem like I'm making a joke, like this is a joke I made. It's not. Someone get that honky cat. And then they kill the cat. And then at least 40 people read this book, which contains that scene, the scene with the honky cat, and thought, yeah, you know what? This book makes a lot of good points. I should do a terrorism. So Turner is brought in by the higher-ups in the organization to undergo a loyalty test. You see, the organization has developed a foolproof way to determine people's allegiances and root out infiltrators. It cannot be beaten, and we never get an explanation for how it works.
It's like every 15-year-old incels like alt-right's like fantasy about how bad the Antifas are or whatever is actually kind of funny. It's like what 15-year-olds on Reddit think about Antifa, but from 1976. It's so funny. Weird, sexless, right-wing incel people with their guns and their fucking weird racism shit. It's just never... I've never understood it.
Very convenient for everyone. Turner is drugged and interrogated. We don't know what happens during this time, but he does so well
we can make assumptions.
that he's recruited into a special super secret part of the organization called the Order. They're the guys who are really in charge of things around here, and they've been going since the 1930s. Gee, kind of like those Nazi guys, huh? The Order gives Turner a special book called, you guessed it, The Book. After reading it, he understands the true significance of the organization's racial agenda, and it provides him with spiritual insights that demonstrate beyond the shadow of a doubt that white people are the master race and Jews are evil. But these insights are not shared with the audience. Just take his word for it, folks. It's really profound and convincing stuff. Wish I could have wrote it here, but I can't. Quote, "For the first time, I understand the deepest meaning of what we are doing. I understand now why we cannot fail, no matter what we must do to win, and no matter how many of us must perish in doing it. Everything that has been and everything that is yet to be depend on us. We are truly the instruments of God in the fulfillment..."
It kind of sounds crazy, doesn't it? It like kind of sounds like Charles Manson doing a rant or something. It has this weird, crazy fucking tone to it.
Grand design. These may seem like strange words coming from me, who was...
All right, I think I got enough here. I don't know. He's only halfway done. But I think I got what I came for here. I think I understand now what this was. I never had like anybody ever explain what this book was. I suppose I'll finish it, but...
Never been religious, but they are utterly sincere words.
I gotta go to the
Yes,
restroom,
might
guys.
seem
I'll be
like odd
right
words
back.
coming from him if he hadn't said almost 50 pages earlier. If we fail, God's great experiment will come to an end, and this planet will once again, as it did millions of years ago, move through the ether devoid of higher man. Anyway, the Order gives him a necklace with a cyanide capsule to take if he ever gets captured. Turner is looking for people to convert to the cause, and he goes to this district in Washington where a bunch of gangs straight out of the Warriors are vying for control. Groups with names like the Lone Wolves, that type of shit. He meets a 16-year-old girl who he befriends and then is briefly sexually attracted to, and then finds out she sold another 16-year-old girl into sex slavery to a Jewish guy, naturally, over a romantic rivalry. He chastises her, but ultimately, what are you gonna do? The whole world is corrupt, so who can blame her for being corrupt? It's a real oopsie daisies. He tries very hard to recruit in a house full of poor white people, but they shrug him off because they think he's a cop, and then they report him to the political police, even though they thought he was a cop. The political police, by the way, are the system's secret police unit. His hideout is raided, his comrades get away, and he's arrested, and he's too much of a fuck-up to take his cyanide pill. He's tortured by a joint system/Israeli coalition of torture guys, and one of the torture guys takes great glee in explaining how he loved torturing Nazis even though he knew they were innocent. Turner complains about the sham trial given to Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the Holocaust. Yes. Really?
Yes, really.
Anyway, he's in a supermax prison for members of the organization, surrounded by troops with machine guns and tanks and stuff. But then, later, easily breaks out. A few days later, he's given a trial by the Order, who are like, yo, you should have killed yourself, but here's the deal, if you do a mission that means you'll die later, it's all good. So, okay, shit goes off the rail at this point. For like 150 pages, we've been told again and again how outnumbered the organization is and how hopeless their cause is, how they don't have the public sympathy, and the system has way more firepower. So weirdly, the organization is planning this big offensive where they need a ton of guns and literally billions of dollars in counterfeit money, which Earl and a couple of his friends produce. So the day comes and they launch
counterfeit
an offense against the
money.
system and kick their asses because, oh hey, guess what? In the background
really
of
your
the story, the organization
plan?
got a bunch of people in the military on their side and nobody knew. This could have been a moment of tension in the book, like this doomed campaign suddenly getting saved at the last minute by a clever secret plan, but nope. Just a thing that happens in between chapters. Stirring stuff. The military disarms all black service members in California without raising suspicion in a world where, may I remind you,
You know, I thought about writing a liberal man book, you know, liberal, like super liberal Superman book when I was a kid, where I like pretty much free all the minority races from all poverty, and I strip the world of all of its fascism, and I like unite all the peoples in a United Colors of Benetton fucking video or whatever. And then like everyone loves each other, and then the aliens show up and I make friends with them, and we figure out the secret to cold fusion, and we never have any energy concerns ever again. And eventually our computer chips are so good in this world that I've built where I saved everybody, and like there's no racism left or any kind of bigotry or any kind of fascism or any kind of violence at all. And if there's violence, it's always like basically gambling violence, like there's boxing matches and stuff that we wager. If we're mad at somebody, we can just turn it into an online boxing match essentially with our like VR helmets and stuff. And I wanted to write a book about like this where like where a liberal man saves the liberal world. Liberal man saves the world. That's what this guy did, but it was like couched. It was like the complete opposite of that. It was like couched in like killing 1,000 of your own people in a false flag, and like starting a race war like Charles Manson, and like like torturing women, like underage women with rape and murder because they're like and selling them to Jewish pimps and stuff like this. It's just like really weird what the opposite of liberal man saving the liberal world is like this weird shit about Mein Kampf or whatever. It's like really weird to me. It's like, and this is supposed to be an ultra liberal book, but I don't think so. I think guns are throughout this whole thing. I think this is the most alt-right book I've ever heard of.
it's considered racist to complain if a black person rapes your wife in front of you, and then kicks all the racial minorities out of California and creates a white stronghold where it's not
Oh,
clear
good. White California. Yeah, that sounds great.
what it's like, except that everyone picks fruit all day for some
Oh,
reason.
God.
Within a few pages, the organization
I'm
nukes
kidding.
New York, Tel Aviv, and most of the Soviet Union. The system, in revenge, nukes Baltimore, where the organization wasn't even operating. Then comes the day of the rope, where they round up all race traitors and hang them.
I don't want to hear any more of this fucking rhetoric. I got enough. I think I can kind of make my assumptions, you know? I don't need any more of the weird hate speech, essentially. Just him telling what the book is. It's essentially hate speech. I have to be very careful. It's so dumb. Oh my God.
He was becoming more and more paranoid, and his regular rants to anybody who was polite enough to give him the time of day were beginning to draw suspicion. One of his coworkers at the zoo even started bringing a tape recorder to work in case there were any specific threats made that he could turn over to authorities. In 1992, Terry Nichols came to Pendleton, New York to visit McVeigh, reigniting their friendship. Nichols had brought along his new
Reunited
Filipino
and
mail
we're
order bride,
back
who McVeigh would
again.
later sleep with. After his visit, Terry Nichols went back to his farm in Michigan, and Timothy McVeigh began betting on sports with the little extra money that he had made. But he committed the cardinal sin of gambling addicts, betting on your team. The Buffalo Bills were pretty damn good, even getting to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row between 91 and 94.
Wow.
But they choked like a girl giving her first blowjob every time they made it, making the Bills an unofficial anagram for Boy, I Love Losing Super Bowls. After a good season in 92 and a series of successful, albeit smaller bets, Timothy McVeigh put the big money, $1,000, on the Bills to win Super Bowl 26. The Bills would lose to the Washington Redskins 37-24. And after gambling away his small nest egg, Timothy McVeigh decided it was time to leave New York, stating that the taxes were too high. He headed out west to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. While attending a gun show there...
Yeah, Florida or California will be better. The taxes are why I'm leaving.
Man named Roger Moore, a wealthy
I declare bankruptcy. The taxes are why I'm leaving.
gun dealer and pornographer. The two
Oh.
got along and discussed politics and conspiracy theories.
Oh, you like guns too? Yeah, I like guns. You like guns? Yeah, I really like guns. Wouldn't it be hot if guns could kiss like these ladies in my porno mag? Yeah, if guns could kiss, it would be so hot. Imagine if guns were kissing.
While they were hanging out at the gun show.
And that's my favorite making fun of right-wing joke, which is like, what if guns could kiss? That's kind of like don't tread on snack. You know, like I literally drop this at least once a week in some dumb chat when some obvious right-wing boomer is yelling at some obvious left-wing boomer or some such. Don't step on snack, right? Yeah. I immediately say, oh man, you like guns? Anytime they talk about guns or anything like that, you just say, oh man, you like guns too? And they're like, yeah. And then you're like, oh man, what if guns could kiss? And you get some weird comments on that one. Because they're like, yeah, what if guns could kiss? That's hot. You'll get these comments. They'll be like, yeah, that's hot. That's hot. What if guns could kiss? And I blow their mind. I think it's the worst part. Like, to me, it's a troll. But I think to them, they're actually, like, literally, like, the idea is actually something they never thought of before. But they like guns that much, where they're like, oh man, what if they could kiss? You know, what if guns could kiss? And I've used this one now for about 2 months, and it works. It never fails to elicit pretty good troll. What if guns could kiss? I have such a stupid fucking sense of humor. It just doesn't work. It's not funny, and you know.
Discussing their ideas.
Don't tread on snack.
Waco between the Branch Davidians and the ATF began the next big confirmation of McVeigh's scatterbrained ideas.
No snap on
They parted
snack.
with Roger Moore and headed to Waco, though the two would remain close, with McVeigh staying at Moore.
Oh, good. They went. Oh man, Timothy McVeigh went to Waco, Texas. What a surprise!
Moore's Hot Spring Ranch 3 times over the next year. One of those
Why are all the wackos in Waco?
times even without Roger being there. See, Roger Moore was a married man with many homes spread across the country, but his girlfriend, Karen Anderson, lived out at the ranch. She had become close with many of the men in the gun show circuit.
I don't know. Is it too soon? Is it too early? Is it too insensitive to mock mass killers? Am I being too mean to them? You know?
And didn't mind the company of another man while Roger was away. In early March of 1993, McVeigh drove his Geospectra to the site of the standoff.
Oh man, if you're driving a Geospectra, you got worse problems than bombing that building. Let that thing go. Get out of the Geospectra. Geospectra's higher on your priority list than whatever that weird white racist bullshit that you're on or whatever. Get out of that Geospectra. If you got out of the Geospectra, there might be a beautiful woman in your life that you didn't see coming. If there was a beautiful woman in your life that you didn't see coming, there might not have been the OKC bombing. It was the Geospectra's fault. It's going to be the Geospectra's fault. Get out of the Geospectra and don't bomb OKC. It's always something in your life. It's always some shortcoming that caused you to be this nut or whatever. And I really just need you to do better than that. I need you to get out of the Geospectra or whatever. Even I probably wouldn't drive a Geospectra. I don't know if you guys remember what those are, but yeah.
For himself. Everyone,
Like,
press
I don't
included,
know, man. Go on down to the bar and have a drink with a pretty girl. And maybe she drives a Corvette or something. But get out of the Geospectra. Get out of it.
Being kept back 2 miles from the Branch Davidian compound by the FBI.
Oh, good. So Wacko went to Waco to show support for Branch Davidian. Because a far worse organization, the FBI, burned 100 children alive. And so Wacko goes to Waco because there's a Wacko in Waco who caused the worse organization, FBI, to burn 100 or so children alive with a tank. Tank equipped with fire.
The largest, closest hill that they could find.
Stay out of Waco, Texas.
McVeigh used the opportunity to set up shop on the roof of his car, selling anti-government bumper stickers and pamphlets to the other protesters who were...
You want to buy my sticker? Do you want to buy my sticker about how much I hate the government? No, I don't. Why? Do you like the government?
gathered there and shared in his outrage of what was happening.
Let me tell you why you shouldn't like the government and all this. It's not like he's selling stickers. It's like he's waiting for people to argue with him. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think most people buy a sticker to put on their car that says "I hate the government" or whatever. I don't know. Maybe.
Davidian compound.
You ever see a sticker on someone's bumper sticker being like "I hate the government"? I don't usually think most people are that tongue-in-cheek, you know? I don't think most people are that cheeky even, really. So it's sort of weird. You're sitting there selling these weird pamphlets and stickers and stuff like you're like a child or something at school on a UNICEF project. It seems really odd for these class of people that hang out in gun shows for them to sell stickers and fucking things, because it seems like he just wants to sit there and argue with anybody who doesn't like the really alarming statement on the sticker or whatever. And it's just seems like with that much time on your fucking hands, it's why this happened. You should just do something. As silly as I am to talk about this, it's hypocritical. Even doing a stupid-ass video game stream is more fulfilling than sitting on that car, pushing weird white nationalist ideals to people and looking for somebody to argue with you at, like, what, a gun show or something? You meet many girls at a gun show? Maybe. I'm not trying to be close-minded. I'm just saying, do you meet many girls at a gun show or whatever? I see somebody who needed love. Somebody who needed love in a family. That is what I see here. And instead, he got the Turner Diaries. And that's what I see here.
Somebody told me a lot of people are scared to put something on like this.
Out of a few days of living and shopkeeping out of his spectra.
They always look like white boys in the army, and it's like it's like, I don't understand, like I don't know, man, like that. It's not a good look. It's sort of weird. It's good, but it's not though. It sort of speaks of wartime. Like you want it like you dress like you want to be in war, like you want to kill someone. You're buzz cut, but you're not in the army. You're like, you kind of look like you kind of want war to be going on to me. Which is, I'm sorry, but like if there was something that would really bother me, it'd be that. If it really looks like the person kind of desires for wartime to happen and is dressing for it and it seems to want it and is like you know, got the buzz cut and the guns and is kind of waiting for it to happen. That bothers me a lot when it really looks like you kind of want wartime to happen in the middle of America. And that's kind of what you did too. You made wartime happen in the middle of America. The whole vibe is evil and sick.
Events at Waco, he decided it was best
Stay out of
to
Waco.
show circuit where he could resell
Wacko.
gear and copies of the Turner Diaries. So he headed out, hitting one gun show after another, crisscrossing America.
Of course he did.
He would make just enough money to fund his travels to the next show, totaling 80 in the following
At least he was
years.
alive. You know,
One of his regular stops
or
between
whatever.
1993 and 1995 was Kingman, Arizona, to see his old army buddy.
I
Michael
can see some people
Fortier
not wanting
and
him
his
to be
wife, Lori.
alive.
The couple would let McVeigh stay with them at their trailer anytime he needed, and even got him a part-time job at a hardware store when he was in town.
Okay, I'm gonna
He would
log
also
out of this
introduce
game now. I've been
McVeigh to
playing it for like
marijuana
10
and then
hours
meth,
and I'm done.
the latter of which would begin to allow
This game's
McVeigh
fun,
to drive
but
cross-country
too
to
much
gun
of it
shows without any
sucks.
rest.
Good night.
In April of 1993, he drove to Tulsa, Oklahoma for the world's largest gun and knife show. Tim felt comfortable around the kinds of people who gathered at these events. They could share open conversations about conspiracy theories like the Jewish Reign UN, and he would meet colorful people like Andrea Strassmeyer, aka Andy the German. Strassmeyer was an interesting and possible integral figure in all of this. A German expat and grandson to one of the earliest members of the German Nazi Party. His entire family was filled with German military men, and he immigrated to the U.S. in hopes of working undercover for the U.S. Justice Department, but officially he was denied this opportunity. Eventually, Strassmeyer landed in Elohim City, a 400-acre white supremacist compound in Adair, Oklahoma, that was
Of
started by
course.
Christian Identity pastor Robert Millar in 1973.
Yay.
Elohim was the stomping grounds for racist and anti-government militiamen.
Yay, racist right wing white racist militias are always really good. You know, really great.
And it still exists to this day.
Always so good
Two
for
of
this
the men that
country.
were training with Strassmeyer in Elohim City in 1993 were Michael Brescia and Richard Guthrie Jr., who were both a part of the Midwest.
They always sound like
Bank
CIA
for the
assassins.
Aryan Republican Army, who robbed 22 banks in the Midwest between 1994 and 1996. It's likely that many or all of the members of the Aryan Republican Army
They're all like these Turner Diary nuts who were all robbing banks trying to start the race war like Charles Manson. What happened to these people? What happened to them? Like what like they were literally robbing banks like the fucking book. That stupid, worthless Mein Kampf book got a bunch of white boys to rob banks in the hopes that they could blow up a fucking government building. And then that's what happened. Fucking idiots. Like, man. And on top of it, I keep hearing like they think that this book is left-wing. That is not a left-wing book. That's not a left-wing book. It's dudes who travel around gun shows all the time. That is not
spent time
left-wing.
training in Elohim City before
Right.
later going on to be convicted of violent crimes like murder, bank
Oh.
robbery, the bombing of buildings, and many would have alleged connections to the Oklahoma City bombing. During their first interaction in Tulsa, Strassmeyer and McVeigh realized that they had some shared friends, including Roger Moore, the Florida gun shop owner that he'd met recently, and his girlfriend Karen Anderson. And McVeigh would actually run into Moore and Anderson later at the same gun show. Since bartering
your
was the
fucking
custom
deal.
at these gun shows, Andy the German bought Tim's Desert Storm uniform, and the pair became fast friends. Strassmeyer invited McVeigh back to Elohim City to see what was going on there, and he gave him a card with the address and phone number on it. Though no hard evidence ever emerged that he was physically there, phone
That is
records show
fucking
that he had called
ridiculous.
several times, and
Can't
witnesses
seem
on the
to shoot.
property were familiar with McVeigh. There were also two separate
Annoying.
government informants who had infiltrated Elohim
That is
City,
ridiculous.
who reported seeing him there before the bombing in 1995 as well. Many believe that Timothy McVeigh could have actually been a part of the Midwest Bank Bandits, which would explain a few things, but we'll get to that in a bit. As mentioned before, McVeigh also ran into Roger Moore at the same gun show. The two bartered, which consisted of McVeigh trading his white power shirt that he'd gotten with his KKK trial membership to Moore for a smoke grenade.
Oh, good.
and
50
KKK
trial
lengths of
memberships.
fuse.
Yay.
After their transaction, Moore invited McVeigh back to his ranch in Arkansas.
Ooh, it sounds
a kindness
sexy.
that he accepted.
Let's go
10
back to the
days in Hot
ranch
Springs,
together.
Arkansas, McVeigh headed
We could play
north to Decker,
cowboy.
Michigan, to visit his buddy Terry Nichols on his family farm. At this point, Nichols and his brother had renounced their U.S. citizenship. Terry was now deep in debt for child support and claimed that his citizenship renouncement was a fraudulent Federal Reserve actually owed him money since they had been in Silver Standard. Tim decided to hang out
Running
there
out of
for a
rounds
while,
already.
and during this time, he figured out that he could get Nichols to do pretty much whatever he wanted. A couple things made
Yeah,
this
these guys
apparent.
aren't too
First,
bright.
After Nichols claimed he regretted not being a part of the Gulf
I
War,
think easily
he allowed
manipulated
Tim
is
to
what's
simulate
usually
it there on
pretty
the farm, taking him out into a field
common
and
with these
shooting at his
guys.
feet, making him dance like an old-time western. Probably
Okay.
the more significant indication of Terry Nichols' submission to McVeigh was the fact that McVeigh slept with his mail-order wife and the mother of his
Wow.
children during that same trip, and it didn't even seem to put a kink in their friendship.
What?
Timothy McVeigh was
And
still
the
on
and he
Nichols'
cucked his
farm in April
wife's.
of
Oh my
1993
god.
when the Waco siege came to
Who the
its
fuck has a
final
mail order
conclusion,
bride
the
except a
ATF raised their
racist piece
flag
of
over the
shit?
remains of the
Jesus
compound.
Christ. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure
McVeigh's
that happens all the
frustrations
time.
with his own government had reached a boiling point. When he got back on the gun show scene, he had changed what he was selling to take advantage of the outrage of the Waco siege.
Racist,
He was selling
sexist
shirts
piece of
that
shit.
said Federal Bureau of Incineration, ATF hats with bullet holes punched in them, and copies of a video called Waco the Big Lie. The people he was now surrounding himself with were receptive to his rants about America needing a change and taking radical action.
Oh,
Inspired
good.
by
Looking like Hitler, are we?
he began to fantasize about how one would go about it. But like Earl Turner, he would need allies, he would need funding, and he would need materials. In June of 1993,
Hey, let's start a
he
race
moved to Kingman,
war.
Arizona,
That'll pay
to
for
spend
it.
more time with Michael Fortier, and he began making ties with the Mojave Desert militia group known as the Arizona Patriots. Michael Fortier got him a job at the True Value Hardware loading lumber, and gave McVeigh a place to crash and receive mail for the next 4 months while he made connections. At night, the two would smoke meth together and talk conspiracy theories.
Oh,
including one that
great.
they
He was a
heard
meth
about the
head.
local National Guard storing guillotines that they would soon use on gun-owning Americans.
Oh, good.
Blacked
They
out
were
one
on the
night, two
crazy
even broke
powder.
into the National Guard armory in Kingman, thinking they'd find the guillotines and large stashes of weapons that they could steal.
So, yeah, that guy, he's a drug addict, the actual streamer who's doing the video. Because he used a phrase that most people wouldn't have used, but he definitely knew a word most people wouldn't use. That's kind of funny. I believe him to be accurate.
They got in, but they didn't find any guillotines or weapons for that matter.
No
So they stole an
guillotines.
axe and a shovel and
Damn
a couple other
it.
domestic items before they were scared off by a security guard's flashlight.
Oh, no, it's
The
a
two also
rent-a-cop.
started to experiment with black powder pipe bombs in the Arizona
We'll pipe
desert
bomb
in
the
early
rent-a-cop.
July.
That's what we'll do. We'll pipe bomb the rent-a-cop.
1993, McVeigh headed back to Decker, Michigan to live and work with Terry Nichols on the family farm during the fall. Around this time, the plan to stockpile materials for bomb making begins to solidify in McVeigh's mind. He and Terry Nichols start making pipe bombs on the property, but their results are underwhelming. They
Oh,
attempted to use one to blow up a large boulder on the property, and it was a complete failure. But officially, these two somehow would make one of the largest truck bombs ever seen by humanity, just under 2 years later. At the end of 1993, McVeigh also started to go to hobby shops around
That was
Michigan
C4,
to buy
wasn't it?
nitromethane model airplane fuel under
Yeah,
the
that'll do
alias
it.
Terry Tuttle. But while he was staying on the farm and shopping for supplies, tragedy would strike. On November 22nd, 1993, Terry's 2-year-old son suffocated on a plastic bag that he'd somehow gotten over his head.
Oh
Police
no.
ruled it an accident, but Terry and his wife still decided to leave the ranch.
Wow, and
Throughout the
that's
Midwest
part of what
before
caused
landing
this,
in
a
Kansas
plastic
6
bag.
months later. McVeigh stayed in Michigan for a few more months, but after not being able to find work, decided to get out of town himself. For about a year, he bounced between Arizona.
Yeah, that'll
Kansas,
do it. Losing your
Michigan.
kid, that'll make you want to
May of
blow up the world.
1994,
Yeah.
Just under a year
Fucking
before
sick
the bombing,
assholes.
Nichols and his wife landed on a ranch.
That
in
I'd never
Marion,
heard before.
Kansas. For months, the two worked tirelessly there on the ranch and were described
I bet
as
my
good
mother would have
workers.
known that.
In July, McVeigh was the best man at the wedding of Michael and Lori Fortier
Or wouldn't know that.
before heading to Kansas in August of 1994. Shortly after he arrived, he convinced Terry Nichols to rob the Marion Quarry, and at 2 a.m. on August 30th, 1994, they drove 2 cars and robbed the place blind.
Oh god.
200 pounds of explosive gel, 299 sticks of dynamite, 600 blasting caps, and a stash of Primadeck
600
cord.
blasting
They
caps.
sold both vehicles with their loot just in case one of them was pulled over on the way back to Kingman, Arizona, where Michael Fortier had been assigned to rent a storage locker for the stash.
Maybe unlikely.
Once they got there, however, they discovered
They hated the
Fortier had
system like
forgotten
I
to
do,
play his
though, so
part,
they were scared
so they
of
drove
it.
the
I would be
explosives to
scared of it
Flagstaff
too.
temporarily. McVeigh and Nichols spent about 3 weeks driving around Kansas to buy large quantities of fertilizer from feed stores and living out of Terry Nichols' truck at Erie State Lake. On September 13th, 1994, the assault weapons ban signed by President Clinton.
Oh, was it
went into
Clinton? I thought it was
effect,
Bush.
which,
Was that
according
Clinton?
to McVeigh, would be his last straw.
Oh
They were now
god.
officially coming after the guns of Americans.
Yeah.
In October of '94, Nichols finally returned to the ranch in Marion, Kansas, but without
true,
much
I mean,
warning,
they
he
kinda
announced
did.
to his boss that he'd be moving to Arizona to
He's
sell
not
guns.
wrong.
Instead, with the assistance of McVeigh, he moved in the middle of the night to Harrington, Kansas, just 30 miles away. He also sold a large amount of gold that he had and gave the money to McVeigh, which he would use to purchase 3 drums of nitromethane from VP Racing in Dallas for $950 each, and several plastic barrels in Florence, Kansas. And then the two began to devise a plan to rob gun dealer Roger Moore at his Hot Springs ranch to continue
Why?
to fund their burgeoning venture.
What? They were gonna kill him? So they want to rob a white man. Their first plan, once they go rogue and they start building the bomb, is to rob the racist white man around them who knows about guns. It just seems so dumb and weird and just so off base and so counterproductive that it just doesn't seem to make sense. It's sort of like, why? Like, why? Like, okay, if you're gonna be these nutty right-wing white supremacist dudes, why would be the first guy that you plan to kill a white guy? I mean, I know I'm from the outside and I'm just looking at it like it's a cartoon. You know, like you guys are cartoon characters, but I don't think, if Wile E. Coyote is on a race war, I don't think he goes and caps another fucking coyote. You know what I'm saying? He caps a rabbit. He doesn't cap another coyote and steal his guns. He caps another rabbit before he goes after Bugs Bunny. It's sort of weird. It's like, even in cartoon character fucking math, it doesn't really add up. Would Wile E. Coyote be like, oh, I've got to go rob another Wile E. Coyote to go kill Bugs Bunny? No. He's going to go kill another rabbit to kill Bugs Bunny. It's just like sort of weird. You don't even fit in cartoon character terms. Your dumb doesn't even work on cartoon levels. Like cartoon levels. Wile E. Coyote is not going to think I got to go whack another Wile E. Coyote to get the resources to kill Bugs Bunny or whatever. It's just so dumb. It doesn't even work for that. Like, why do you guys like come on, man? you're always kind of dumb too. You're kind of dumb when you do this stupid shit. You're like kind of low IQ motherfuckers a little bit. Like even from like a cartoon character standpoint, you're like kind of like dumb and lamentably like poor in your choices, you know? Like what?
94, Roger Moore and his girlfriend Karen Anderson
Oh
were out
no.
at the Hot Springs Ranch preparing for Anderson to attend a gun show.
So you go whack one of your gun show buddies and his wife. It was just, in my opinion, basically invalidates you even with the people who liked you. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't that basically invalidate you with all your white homies who want all the Jews to die or whatever the fuck bullshit you idiots believe in? Like, but like the first thing you do is plan to go cap another white gun store dude, and that, I think that invalidates you to even your fucking friends or whatever. Like, I'm sorry, but logic doesn't really enter into a lot of this stupid shit. It's always an idiot acting like an idiot. It's so dumb.
In Shreveport, Louisiana, the next day. At 6 a.m. the following morning, Karen left for the gun show, and Roger got up at 9.
Oh no, they treated it like an
He was
assassination.
greeted by a man dressed in
Of
fatigues,
course he
wearing a ski
was.
mask and holding a pistol grip
my
shotgun
God.
and a garrote wire in the other hand. After forcing Moore back in his home and handcuffing him, the robber began to loot the house. He clearly had inside knowledge of what was there and where it was located. He quickly gathered up all the guns, cash, precious metals, and jewels within the home and loaded them in Moore's van.
Common
During
fucking
the heist, Roger had
thieves.
complained that he was losing
And the
feeling in
first
his hands
place they
due to the
go
dice.
is to a rich white man's house who hangs out in the gun scene with them and probably has the same racist beliefs they do. Which is just like, man, on top of it, you got to add hypocrisy and pretty much like, I don't know what treason is to you. It's obviously not blowing up your own country's building. But I mean, treasonous behavior in a way, or whatever, betrayal. Let's call it betrayal, right? Like, as far as betrayal goes, if you need money for your whack-ass fucking rob bank bullshit to go blow up a federal building, wouldn't basically the only target you would never make be a rich white gun store guy? Wouldn't that basically be the only guy in America that you wouldn't logically hit? But that's the one that you hit. And I really have an issue with it. It's like, you are dumb. You're dumb. You're so dumb.
Cuffs, and the robber obliged him by rebinding him with duct tape. In all, the thief made off with $8,700 in cash.
I should rob
66
gun store dudes
firearms,
too.
Gold bars, silver
kidding.
bullion, Moore's safety
That was
deposit
uncalled for.
box
I'd take it
key,
back.
and many other valuables. Roger Moore eventually worked himself free before heading next door to call the cops, as the assailant had cut his phone line. He told the police that he had no doubt the robbery had something to do with a man named Timothy McVeigh, who he apparently had a recent falling out with. He did admit, though, that the man was much shorter than McVeigh and had a mustache and possibly a goatee, though it was hard to tell under the mask. During the robbery, McVeigh was attending a gun show in Akron, Ohio, and then spent a month in New York after the death of his grandfather. Later, Roger Moore would admit that the robber couldn't have been Nichols either, for he was known to be clean-shaven and much smaller in stature than the attacker. To this day, it's unknown exactly who robbed Roger Moore. But later, Robert Millar, leader of Elohim City, would admit that Michael Brescia, ARA member and roommate of Andrea Strassmeyer at Elohim City, helped with the robbery in Hot Springs. And this was in the height of the bank heist that the ARA were pulling. Around this time, McVeigh also wrote a letter to his sister with 3 sequential $100 bills, which he explained that he'd gotten from committing a bank robbery. So there's a good chance McVeigh was a part of the whole Midwest Bank Bandits run. There's also been speculation that Roger Moore, Karen Anderson, or both were in on their own robbery as a way to launder money to McVeigh. And
if I'm a fucking bank robber, I'm not telling my fucking sister I robbed a bank unless she's on that run with me. Like, I'm sorry, and that's not some sexist thing or that I wouldn't trust my sister. I'm just saying, when you're a fucking bank robber, loose lips sink ships. You less people know, the better. Why would you go out of your way to oh shit, fucking wasted me, man. I thought you were gonna fucking poison me. I one-shot him though, which is good. Scared the fuck out of me. Get those headshot, fucking flick shot headshots from point blank. Like no prep, no waiting, no nothing. Just knee-jerk headshot, right crossbow right into his dome. Fucking scared the fuck out of me. Yeah, I'm full again. I have 150 scrap. Jesus. I don't really want any beef with you guys. I just want to ride the pylon to my house. Yeah.
For the Oklahoma City bombing. The guns that were taken were stored in a storage locker rented by Terry Nichols in Council Grove, Kansas. Nichols was staying nearby at a room in the Travelers Motel in Manhattan, Kansas. The locker and the motel room were rented under the same name, Ted Parker, who had Michigan plates. From there, he called McVeigh to tell him that the robbery went well, and he mailed him $2,000 cash in 100s. He also went across the street and made 6 phone calls to an unknown number. In December of 1994, McVeigh left New York after helping with the estate sale of his grandfather's belongings and went back to Decker, Michigan, where he continued to practice bomb making, but with a family friend of the Nichols named Kevin Nicholas.
Oh
McVeigh is still not very good at it, but he begins to brag to others that he's getting better. He also started to go to meetings with Nicholas for a paramilitary group known as the Michigan Militia. While in Decker, he received another letter from Terry which contained a key and a combination to the Council Grove storage locker. He then drove from Michigan to Arizona to pick up Michael Fortier. Lori Fortier helped McVeigh create a fake ID that he could use later to check into a motel before the bombing. McVeigh and Fortier then headed to the storage locker in Council Grove to pick up the guns that were stolen from Roger Moore. On the way, they stopped off in Oklahoma City to scout the Muir building that he planned on bombing, driving around the location twice and pinpointing vulnerabilities. Then they continued on to Council Grove, where they rented a second vehicle. They loaded the car up with about 30 guns, after which Fortier drove it back to Kingman, Arizona, and was told that he could keep half the profits from selling the weapons. He and his wife, Lori, both played a role in the planning stages of what was to come. McVeigh returned to Michigan to stay with Kevin Nichols with several of the stolen guns. He began to go around to gun shows in the state and sell off what he had brought back. And Michael Fortier was in Arizona doing the same. On January 19, 1995, just 3 months before the bombing, James Nichols, Terry's brother, transferred the deed of his 1983 Pontiac station wagon to Timothy McVeigh. This was intended to be the getaway car that McVeigh would use in Oklahoma City, and he drove it down to Kingman, Arizona to meet up with Fortier. The pair went to Reno in February, where they sold off more of the stolen weapons at a gun show there. In March, the leaders of the Michigan Militia, the Arizona Patriots, and other far-right groups began to talk of a revenge plot for the events at Waco 2 years earlier. At least a dozen other leaders of right-wing groups around the country also spoke of a national tragedy that would occur as revenge on the 10th anniversary for the raid of the CSA compound, and as retribution for a man named Richard Snell's execution, which had been scheduled for April 19, 1995. And I guess now is as good a time as any to get into Richard Snell and the CSA, but to do so we have to go back 12 years. In the early 80s, there was another compound very similar to Elohim City, located in northern Arkansas, called the Covenant, Sword, and Arm of the Lord, or the CSA. It began as a Christian identity group but quickly grew into something more nefarious, becoming a violent hate group that believed that Jewish people were descendants of Satan. They had planned to take the model of the radical leftists in the 60s and use crime to fund their mission in the 80s. The domestic terrorist group flourished there in the foothills, training and stockpiling weapons and explosives. An Oklahoma man named Richard Snell was a member of the CSA and of the Aryan Nation, with grievances against the IRS, and in 1983 he hatched up a plan to bomb the Muir building with a truck bomb. Snell and other CSA members cased the location and saw the lack of security, but his plan to use a van filled with explosives was shot down by the leader, James Ellison, who wanted to build a rocket launcher to blast the structure with instead.
Rocket launcher.
But all plans to attack the building went up in smoke when their homemade rocket launcher exploded during its creation, killing 2 men.
Wow.
Snell and Ellison saw it as divine intervention and moved away from the Muir building plans. Later that year, Snell killed a pawn shop owner in Texarkana that he mistakenly believed to be Jewish.
What?
In 1984, he murdered an Arkansas state trooper that pulled him over for being black, and then fled to Oklahoma where he was caught. He showed zero remorse during court, and even said that he would do it all again if he had the chance. Soon after he was convicted and given the death sentence, Operation Clean Sweep, a vast operation targeting right-wing militia groups in the U.S., began on April 19, 1985.
They got sick of it. They're like, nah, we're not doing this with you anymore. Yeah.
The raid didn't go as planned, though, and resulted in a standoff.
Never
the FBI
does.
contacted Robert Millar, leader of the Oklahoma separatist compound called Elohim City in Oklahoma, to ask him for help. And with Millar on board, they convinced the CSA to surrender, and the largest catch of guns and explosives ever seized was found on the property. And Operation Clean Sweep
all those
continued
guns,
around
and
the
you
country.
never fire them. I mean, you
Charges of
fire them, but
robbery,
you don't.
assassination
use them.
attempts, bombing plots, and mass shooting plans were levied in a large sedition trial against many right-wing leaders at the time. 14 of them would end up defendants in the Fort Smith trial in 1988, with many others turning state's witness. One of the men who flipped was CSA founder James E. Ellison, who revealed the 1983 plot to attack the Muir building that had been cooked up by Richard Snell. During the trial, the jury didn't see the witnesses as credible, as they were all white supremacist extremists.
Of course.
And because of this, all the men on trial were found not guilty and released.
Wow.
After the leader of the CSA tried
Great
to burn
job.
its own members to save his skin, his following abandoned him and moved to Elohim City to regroup and plan for their war against the U.S. government. Now let's fast forward
I do the
back
same.
to within a month of the 1995 Oklahoma City attack.
I'm
On
kidding.
March 31st, McVeigh checked into the Imperial Motel in Kingman, Arizona, paying for 12 days in advance. A few days later, on April 3rd, Michael Fortier and his wife would sell off the remainder of the stolen guns at a Tucson gun show. On April 5th, McVeigh called a Ryder truck rental dealership in Lake Havasu from the Imperial Motel to ask about rental rates. Immediately after, he called Robert Millar's number in Elohim City. The call was answered by Millar's daughter-in-law, who said McVeigh was asking for Andrea Strassmeyer. 5 days later, an interesting thing would happen at a strip club in Tulsa, Oklahoma, called Lady Godiva's. Witnesses claimed to see someone matching McVeigh's description, with a buck-toothed man who had a German accent, and a third man who was short, stocky, and had olive skin. The same description that would later be given for John Doe number 2. The 2 men that were with McVeigh were likely Andrea Strassmeyer and Michael Brescia. And this whole meeting would have probably passed as uneventful had McVeigh not bragged to a cocktail waitress of his plans. He told her come April 19th, 1995, that she'd never forget his name. The waitress thought this was so odd that she went into the changing room and told a couple of her friends, an interaction that was fortunately caught on tape.
I'm a very smart man. I said, you are. And he goes, yeah.
No, you aren't.
And you're going to remember me on April 19.
Smart man. Yeah, smart man. Brags about his shit. Yeah. You're smart.
1995. You're gonna remember me for the rest of your life.
2 days later, on April 12th, just
What
a
does that
week before
sound
the
like?
bombing, he
Sounds
would
like a
check out at the
terrorist about to
Imperial Motel at 10
blow up a
a.m.
bomb
and
or
begin his
something.
1,000-mile trip from Kingman, Arizona to Junction City, Kansas. He barely made it into town as the station wagon he'd gotten from James Nichols broke down on the edge of town.
I've been
He
there.
made adjustments on April 14th when he traded in the station wagon and $250 cash to a Firestone tire.
Was he on meth for the
Green
whole
yellow
thing? I bet he
1977
was.
Mercury Marquis. Knowing he wouldn't need it long, McVeigh just threw the old Arizona tag from the station wagon on his new beater and drove it to the Dreamland Motel. Despite having the fake ID that Lori Fortier helped him make, he checked into the hotel under his real name and used the address of the Nichols farm in Michigan. He also called Elliott's body shop, who rented Ryder trucks, where he would ultimately rent his vehicle. On Sunday, April 15th, a food order was called into the hotel room from the Hunan Palace restaurant. The name on the order was Bob Kling. When the delivery driver arrived, somebody who wasn't Timothy McVeigh answered the door and paid the delivery man. The driver would later say that whoever answered the door wasn't any of McVeigh's known accomplices either. The next day, the 16th, McVeigh drove his getaway car to downtown Oklahoma City. He left a note in the window that read as follows: "Not abandoned. Please do not tow. Will move by April 23rd. Needs battery and cables." Then he called Terry Nichols in Kansas and told him that he needed to come pick him up there in Oklahoma City and take him back to his motel room in Junction City, Kansas, a 550-mile round trip. And without question, Nichols agreed. It's honestly hard to say how much Terry Nichols knew at this point, but he would later tell authorities that on the trip back, McVeigh told him something big is about to happen. Terry asked him if he meant a bank robbery, to which McVeigh just repeated, "Something big." The pair arrived back at the Dreamland Motel at 1:30 a.m. the next morning, and Terry Nichols drove back to his home in Harrington directly after. Later that afternoon, McVeigh is seen on a security camera at a Junction City McDonald's. Shortly after, two men show up at Elliott's body shop nearby. One of them fits McVeigh's description, and the other would be labeled as John Doe number 2 by authorities. McVeigh requested a truck with a 5,000-pound payload and provided the fake ID that Lori Fortier had made him to complete the transaction. The name on it was Robert Kling, the same name used on the food order back at the hotel room, and it had a birthday of April 19th, 1970. The two men drove the truck and the Mercury Marquis back to the Dreamland Motel and parked the Ryder truck as far from the room as they could. According to records, McVeigh phoned Elohim City afterwards, apparently to secure a place to hide out after the attack. At 8 p.m. that evening, a man matching the description of John Doe number 2 would check into a separate motel room for a single night just a mile down the road at the Great Western Inn. In the early hours of April 18th, just a day before the bombing, McVeigh leaves the motel room in the Ryder van. At 6 a.m. he rings Nichols and tells him to meet him at the storage unit in Harrington, Kansas, where the bomb materials were being stored. They fill the truck and drive to Geary Lake to assemble the bomb. The 7,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate and fuel were arranged in a U-shape to direct the blast. The payload would be ignited by two lengths of fuse which ran back into the cab. McVeigh, Nichols, and whoever else was there finished up before noon, and Terry Nichols took off.
Whoever else.
McVeigh, and likely John Doe number 2, traveled to northern Oklahoma, where they stop and sleep for the night in the Ryder truck. On April 19th at dawn, the truck pulls off and heads towards downtown Oklahoma City and is spotted on the Regency Tower security camera traveling to the Muir building. More than 20 witnesses claim to have seen McVeigh with another man, dark skin, shorter, both while the two were en route and exiting the vehicle. As I've already mentioned, the second man would later be referred to as John Doe number 2. Hundreds went in and out of the Muir Federal Building every day to perform payments and other municipal activities, and McVeigh wanted to detonate his bomb during the day to send a message, racking up the highest body count possible. He compared those in the building to those working in the Death Star and likened himself to Luke Skywalker in that moment. But 138 of the 168 who had died that day had nothing to do with law enforcement. The plan had been to park the Ryder truck in the underground parking structure beneath the Muir building, which would have been far more catastrophic if you can even imagine. But McVeigh and his cohorts had made a crucial mistake. The clearance on the Ryder truck was too high to get in, and they spent 15 to 20 minutes attempting to get the moving truck into the underground lot before panicking and coming up with a plan B. Next, he tried the alley nearby alongside the building, but upon seeing a cop car parked there, he backed out and spotted his third option right up front alongside the Muir building and a handicapped parking space. A total of 24 people later interviewed by the FBI told agents that they saw McVeigh with someone else. One man gave McVeigh directions to Fifth and Harvey and saw the second man sitting in the Ryder truck. Several others claimed to have seen the Ryder truck driving in a caravan with the marquee, a brown truck, and a van, made more noticeable as the group failed to get into the parking structure. If true, it's likely that the people driving the other vehicles were McVeigh's bank robber ARA buddies. After deciding on the handicapped spot, McVeigh rounded the block just before 9 a.m. and he pulled the Ryder truck over to light the first fuse of the 3.5-ton bomb.
Wow. Well, I hate to, end on a climactic ending here, but I guess I've been at this for 14 hours and 56 minutes and streaming and 11 hours and 26 minutes recording, and I am going to go to bed now. I'm terribly sorry. I'm very tired. I don't wish to lose my schedule. I will be up in the morning, and thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It was a very good day. Got a lot of good streaming done and all this. Learned a lot, and played a lot of video games. Just a reminder, you can come and sub to me on Twitch at any given time. And you can also come to my website, which is skycat.live, and click on the cat space to donate. I'm a full-time variety gamer all day, every day. Put me on the background all day, every day. And that's it. I thank you so much for your patronage and your time. And you guys have a wonderful evening. I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Love you. Bye.